My name's Andrew Baker. I'm the buying director at Virgin Wines. 2020 has obviously been dominated by COVID. It's had an impact on every industry, and obviously it's had an impact on our industry as well. The impact's been quite profound, with the hospitality trade effectively stopping in a global sense. It's left many, many wine producers stymied. There's been some really heartbreaking stories of wine producers. Obviously, producing wine without customers for it to go to is very challenging. That conveyor belt never stops. Grapes never stop growing. So there's been some stories of heartbreak in our industry as well, and they will tend to be more at the smaller scale. So if you imagine that we've been able to keep selling wine, and obviously restaurants cannot. So the people that supply restaurants tend to be smaller producers, more boutique producers. And actually they're people we buy from also. At the bigger end of the scale, huge co-ops, supplying supermarkets, millions of cases of wine, there's been less of a problem. Supermarkets are open, that flows fine. That's the absolute bottom end unit cost part of the market. That's been really buoyant, in fact. Again, in a global sense. But for us, because we buy from those medium, small producers, it's been fantastic to be able to keep our doors open so they can keep their doors open, really. It's absolutely vital that end of the wine spectrum, where there are many more producers, but they're much smaller, is kept alive, because the diversity is everything. So it's had a very profound effect on the uptake of wine for those guys. But as I say, our door is open, and we've managed to keep buying from these guys, which is super important. I think one really positive part of having a year which is dominated by COVID has been, rather like we've seen in our communities, people coming together and helping one another out. Obviously, there are not itinerant workforces, for example, who go and help in vineyards. They don't exist anymore because travel has been restricted. So you see at that sort of smaller level, family, friends, networks of people, smaller, localism, really helping out those people, because you need the work done. Families coming together, friends coming together to make that happen. And that's a really nice community aspect to wine production, which has been absolutely essential. Just getting wine produced, getting it in bottle. We've seen quite a lot of that, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, where the European harvest, for example. So that's been a really nice aspect, which mirrors what's happening in Britain. It has happened in Britain over the last year. Looking at the past, before COVID, the global wine production was in crisis in 16, 17, where very little wine was produced relative to the previous productions. So there was a shortage of wine, and there are countries like China where the demand for wine has increased, and all of that means you pay a lot more money for the same kind of thing, which is bad. Possibly limits customer choice and all of those things. But we were just emerging from that, and global wine production regions coming back to real strength. It's real strength in how much wine is made, real strength in terms of quality. South Africa's an amazing example of that. Drought after drought after drought, vines dying, and then suddenly we're back in. We have this great crop, ready to buy, ready to ship, and quality's great. It's a great price you can buy for. And then we have the COVID virus year, where it becomes very much more difficult, and it becomes logistically difficult. Shipping, stopping. As we said before, there's no element of the industry that remains untouched by the virus. However, there are lots of things to be positive about. We have different vaccines now, which will resolve things in 2021. We're super optimistic because we've managed to keep the door open and the flow of wine happening, that when we do get into the greener pastures of 21, it's going to be fabulous. There's a lot of wine which we've organised remotely. Actually, we normally go there and do these things, but we've done this remotely, which is ready to click in. We've got some great harvests from regions. There's some lovely quality coming. There's also some positives on a global economic scale. So the Chinese are very important in this because their demand is high. They've just slapped some tariffs on Australian wine, which means we will have more choice from Australia, which is fantastic. The Americans, there are tariffs from the Americans on European wines. All of that means that France shipping less wine to America means that it's less desirable for France to ship wine to America. So we'll be getting in there.